Hi everyone. Well, we went on a trip to Alice Springs in Central Australia recently. We had such an amazing time. The main reason that we went was to see the Uluru Kata National Park and to travel around a little bit and do some walks. This is the amazing Uluru. It's such a special place. We were lucky to walk around the base of it one morning at sunrise, which was just incredible. And this is a photo of some of that walk. There's me in my trendy fly net at Kings Canyon, which was another really special, beautiful place. This place is called Lake Amadeus. You can see the white part on the horizon. That's a salt lake. It's a really big salt lake out there. And the reason why I'm sharing this is because when we had to walk up this red sand hill to be able to get to see this salt lake. And the sand was so fine and such an amazing rich red. It was incredible. I didn't even ask anything about it, but our guide just said to us, if anybody wants to take some sand home, you can. So I thought, why not? I had a little container in my bag, so I grabbed a bit of sand and I thought I might make some soap with it or do something with it. So I brought some beautiful Central Australian desert sand home with me, and here we are with this video. So this sand is incredibly fine, and these photos don't do justice for the colour. It's such a rich colour. I just knew that it would be amazing in soap, and it turns out that it was. So I made this batch of soap, and I really wanted to share the making of it with you. So this soap recipe, it's a pretty standard recipe for me. I'm showing this more to show you the techniques for how I made it rather than the recipe, but it's 190 grams of water to begin with. Just starting off with making the lye solution. And to the water I'm adding 138 grams of sodium hydroxide. So this is the dangerous part of making soap, so make sure that you've got glasses, gloves and a mask on when you do this, and just be really careful. Make sure that you haven't got any distractions around and that you weigh everything really accurately. That's important too. So 138 grams, the recipe is in the description box. So once you've got those two weighed out, slowly pour the sodium hydroxide into the water, never the other way around, and just mix those through until the sodium hydroxide dissolves in the water. Just be really, really careful when you do this. And once that's dissolved, just set that aside somewhere safe until you're ready for the next step. Then you get your oils ready. So I'm using 850 grams of olive oil. This is just light Spanish olive oil from the supermarket. It's nothing fancy. Just use whatever olive oil you can get your hands on. Adding to that 100 grams of coconut oil. I had to melt this in the microwave a bit because it's still a little bit cool here overnight. And 50 grams of castor oil. So it's just a 3 oil recipe, this one. Nice and simple, nice and easy to make, and fairly easy to get the ingredients as well. So mix your oils together. I just give them a nice stir, make sure that they're thoroughly combined before I add the lye solution and start to mix the soap. And here we are adding the lye solution. So this was made about a half an hour before, so it's not really hot, but it's not cold either. It's probably, I'm not sure exactly what the temperature would be, but it's sort of warm but not extremely hot. Make sure you get it all in there and put that container away somewhere safe, or rinse it out straight away because it's had that lye solution in it. And start to mix your soap. I always give my soap batters a bit of a hand mix before I get the stick blender in there. I don't know why, it's just a bit of a habit. But when you're ready, get your stick blender and blend away. Now, because this soap recipe and this video is all about demonstrating a swirling technique with this beautiful red sand soap that I'm going to show you, I don't want to over blend my batter. I want to get it to a well emulsified state, but not so over blended that it's thickening too quickly. We want this soap batter to stay as liquid as possible for as long as possible, so it doesn't thicken throughout the swirling pattern making process. So I give this a couple of little stick blends, but that's about it. And when you've got it to a nice emulsified state, that's the best time to add your essential oil. Make sure you do this before you separate the batter into different colours, because you'll regret it. I've done that many times. So I'm using 40 grams of essential oil in this, 24 grams of cedarwood and 16 grams of lime, which is a really nice fresh combination. You don't have to add essential oil to this soap recipe, or any soap for that matter. It's totally a personal choice. I just really like the idea of this scent combination, and I had these oils. So what you do next is you want to pour out some of the soap batter into a separate container, so that you can colour the two portions separately. I'm only pouring out a smaller amount for my second colour, because I want the bulk of this soap to be the red sand colour. So here's my sand. It's just beautiful. It looks really dark here. It's amazing how it looks different colour in different lights. You know, even aside from being on camera, it looks different every time you look at it. So I've mixed a bit in there and pretty quickly realised that I need a whole lot more, so I added a whole lot more. I probably used maybe close to about 1/4 of a cup of the sand in total. I wasn't worried about it making the soap gritty, so I just kept adding it till it was the colour that I wanted it to be. I'm quite experimental, as you probably know, with my bread making and my soap making. I like to just add things till I think they look okay. And you can do that too. Just play around with things. It's not going to hurt your soap recipe. So here's the second colour, the second portion of soap, and to this I'm adding some charcoal. So this is some activated charcoal that I'd mixed in with water, and the reason for that is when you're doing swirls with your soap, you want everything to mix in as thoroughly as possible, as easily as possible, without having to use your stick blender again, because that will make your soap set up faster. So if you've got powdery ingredients and you're not sure how they're going to dissolve, mix them with a bit of water or a bit of oil, preferably water if you can first, because they'll disperse a lot easier and you'll be a lot less likely to get any lumps or anything like that in your batter, which then you'd have to use the stick blender to get out. So charcoal mixed in with some water, and then just spoon that in till you get the colour that you want. You can use any colours in this sort of a recipe. I'm just really showing you what I did, and the technique of the hanger swirl really is the main thing I wanted to show. So I've got my two colours there. Give them a bit of stir, just to keep the batter moving. It is starting to saponify already, so it's starting to thicken as you go, so you want to work fairly quickly at this point. Now, there's plenty of different ways to make this sort of a soap, but this is how I do it. I actually pour all of the base soap colour into my mould before I pour the second colour in. Some people might do a bit more layering, but I just put the whole lot of the first one in. And as quickly as you can, just scrape out as much as you can from your bucket or your bowl or whatever you're using. And then with the second colour, you watch how I do this. You really want to pour it so that it goes into the soap. Can you see that? See how it's sort of sitting on the top now, but when I first poured that in that first run, you could actually see it go under the surface of the soap and into the base colour. That's what you want. You want it to kind of, pour it from a bit of a height so that it pushes through and goes into the soap. And then any excess that, it's starting to thicken up now, so I can't get it to go down into the soap. Just spoon whatever you have left over the top, and that's fine. Every batch is different, so it's all a bit of a creative process. You've just got to work with what happens on the day. And this is the hanger swirl. So this is literally a coat hanger wire unfolded and then fed through a PVC tube, and then you push that down through the soap and pull it up and pull it side to side a little bit. Do it however you like. There's no right way to do it. I'm certainly not an expert. This is just how I tend to do it. And once you think you've done enough, which for me is usually not very much. I like to just do it a couple of times and leave it. I find that I get really nice results if I do it that way. You take that out, give your soap a tap, then it should be fairly well settled inside, and then do whatever you want to do on the top. I decided to just do some diagonal sort of a swirly pattern on the top. You can get a spoon, a teaspoon or something, and texture the top of your soap, you know, make it nice and chunky if you want. I tend to prefer plain, a more plain style of soap on the top. So I just do this kind of thing. When you're doing this though, don't push the chopstick down too far into the soap. You just want it to just trail along the top, otherwise you'll wreck your pattern that you've got on the inside. And that's it. That's the soap done. A few extra taps for good measure. They never go astray. Okay, so now that you've made your soap, you just wrap it up. Insulate it overnight so it gels fully, and here's my soap the next day. It's set. This is just under 24 hours, probably about 20 hours. And I did have it wrapped up in a nice warm blanket overnight and just left it in there. So it's nice and firm, it's ready to cut. It's a beautiful creamy colour. I cannot tell you how happy I was to see the outcome of this soap. It was just so beautiful. I've been making soap for so long now. It never ceases to amaze me though when they come out great like this. So I'm just trimming these sides down. You don't have to do this, but it saves you from trimming each individual bar later on. You just get your knife and just run it down and smooth up those edges, and then get a board and use whatever technology you have to cut your soap. These days I just tend to use my knife because I'm just doing one batch at a time these days. And there it is. It's absolutely beautiful. I love the subtleness of the colours in this soap. The charcoal isn't too dark. The red sand came out a beautiful pinky, mottly pinky colour, which I love with the dark grey. It's just beautiful. And cutting your soap is the most satisfying thing. You get this lovely surprise of the pattern inside, which you never know. You never really know what it's going to look like, so it's really fun. It's one of the best parts of making the soap, I think, is the cutting. I always get disappointed when I watch soap making videos and they don't show the cutting of the soap. So you're all getting to see my cutting of the soap because that's my favourite bit. Look at that one. Turned out so beautiful. Really nice little heart-shaped pattern in some of them, which was cool. And there you go. So now you want to put your soap on a rack or somewhere cool and dry for at least a month. Probably about 6 weeks is good, just so that it gets nice and hard and dry and it lasts longer when you do go to use it. This was such a beautiful soap. Thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed the video and you'll have a go at a hanger swirl and play around with some new ingredients if you can find them too. Thanks everyone. Bye.